Hello, security pros, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on today's ESA webinar, Your Key to Taking Interactive Video Monitoring Services to the Next Level, the ideal solution for dealers and monitoring stations. During this webinar, DICE expert Avi Lupo, who is the co-president of DICE Corporation, will go over how easy and profitable it is to add new, innovative, and interactive video services for additional RMR. I'm Hannah Boone, ESA's Marketing and Communications Manager, and I'm excited to lead this webinar today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us on your first ESA webinar. Welcome. You will be muted for the duration of this session, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If a question or comment comes to mind at any point during today's session, make sure to click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure that we save some time for your questions with our expert here today. We'll also be recording this webinar so you can rewatch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Tomorrow, you'll receive an email thanking you for your attendance today with a link to the recording. If your company is an ESA member, we thank you for utilizing those benefits to save, expand your team, and get connected to the ESA community. If you're not yet a member of the Electronic Security Association, you should check us out. ESA is the largest and longest standing association serving the pro-installed electronic security and life safety industry. Our members are integrators, dealers, monitoring centers, and even manufacturers and service providers in the space. You'd be surprised at the power an ESA membership holds for your company. Get a feel for all the ESA benefits, including savings on business insurance, training, customized in-house onboarding, and professional development programs, peer networking groups, government advocacy programs, certifications that satisfy state licensing, and in some cases are alternatives to NICET at esaweb.org. One of our membership specialists would be happy to walk you through these benefits at the application process. We at ESA realize that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Avi Lupo, the co-president of DICE Corporation. He is responsible for high-level organizational decisions, product roadmap development, and new business opportunities at the company. Avi is also integral in establishing sales and marketing expansion strategies for DICE Corporation's growing cloud technology. Among his many accomplishments, Avi formed strategic alliances that introduced video as a service to the security industry and establishing industry standards. We also have Clifford Dice, the president, CEO, and founder of DICE Corporation. Under Cliff's leadership, DICE Corporation has helped shape safety and security in North America for over 30 years. So, without further ado, Avi, you can take it away.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for the introduction. So at the meeting today, we have a kind of like mixed audience. We have some central stations, some integration companies and dealers. We also have some proprietary command centers and some vendors. So we'll try to utilize to cover in an optimal way the different verticals. So the time that you spend today with us will be valuable. Let's start with about the company. So Cliff started the company over 35 years ago. The type of customers that we have as a company, we have proprietary customers like large chains of retail stores, like CVS stores, AutoZone, and many others. Then we have many monitoring stations around the country, any type of monitoring station to do either a fire, intrusion, video, and etc. The company structure, we have a different set of products that including accounting and service and communication services. But today we're going to focus on the video products, although we would love to talk with you about some of the other solutions and the unification on how everything works with everything. IPTelex is a sister company to DICE, and IPTelex is a communication company. We specialize in installing, designing and installing a layer 2 infrastructure for end customers with the internet services, as well as the telephone communication virtual PBXs, and all kind of other solutions. We have over 10 million subscribers on the IP Telix within the security industry that provide and utilize our services. Let's talk about evolution. So we all live 2022 and the world is changing, and the things that we didn't know like years ago, those new technology pretty much changed the world. So Amazon took over and changed many people's life in different industries and in effect in different industry. The same Airbnb and Uber, and I can go in and go as how a new technology changing industry into the level that pretty much they disappear. If you just think about the business model of the cellular industry, which is a young industry, it's about 25 to 30 years old. Way back, a telephone was to pick up the phone and to call somebody, and today's cell phone is really the center of our life. The banking, the keys, everything with everything is on that phone. So understanding that and looking at our industry and the evolution of the industry, and I've been in the industry for 40 years, the industry is changing, and the old way of selling alarm services and fire alarm services and the repair services, what the average dealer is selling, moving into video, but it's not only video verification, it's the full basket of services that the new technology enabled them to do. So today, when people are selling CCTV, so some of the time it's a one-time sale. You sell an NVR, DVR with X number of cameras, monitor on the site. Then the cost is pretty expensive when the end user pretty much they manage all those systems themselves. And the people are installing some services, but the services are minimal. Some analytic services, some of the other services, but that's not dominating the industry. And it's pretty much still at $30, $40, $50 a month from alarm. And then some people, which is a very small part of the industry, doing some CCTV or video services, but that's not dominating yet the industry in the way it works. So new way of selling services. I would like to give you an example of a customer site, residential community, that they install system like CCTV system with 38 cameras about 5 years ago. The installer got back to them and proposed, and they have it's a residential community that have a security desk, like security 24/7 at the front desk. So the installer got back to them, and what they did was the following: they added video analytics to 8 cameras in critical areas. Then they went and they installed a remote remote activated speakers, strobe lights, sirens, altogether devices the central station can control remotely. Then they work with the customer to eliminate the night shift because there's not much traffic into the building at night. And the bottom line of that was that by installing cameras with video services, and the video services was if somebody was loitering at one side of the building that was more in risk and have more issues from that side, they had the central station do voice down and activate remotely siren and speakers and push the people out of the premise. They had a virtual guard, so when the visitor came at night, the central station will get them in. They initiate a virtual video tours, so the system a few times a night got in, and now the operator would take a look at what's going on instead of people doing patrols at the site. Another interesting thing that they did there, they have like a staircase exit doors. When people, they walk in the dog out, they keep the door open, and that's pretty much open. The door is open, and now homeless or anybody else can get into the building. What they did is if somebody keep the door open for more than 1 minute, it got a trigger. Now the central station got the event. They talked to the site. They saw with the person, the resident that kept the door open. and they spoke with the site basically to resolve the problem in real time. With numbers from a zero recurring revenue that they have from that old CCTV, the installed system, the cost of the total equipment was about, I think, $3,000 for everything. That's all. It's just some relay control and the speakers, very low-cost equipment that they added to the system. Then analytics that chose analytic company that have cloud-based video analytics and the monitoring services. So they're charging $1,200 with very, very high margin for those services when before they had, and everything that they did was utilizing all the installation that was done 5 years ago with 2 days labor of an installer. So it's all about new way of selling video services versus, and many times to utilize all the infrastructure. Now, when we think about services, so we need to differentiate between the security monitoring services, and security is everything that can be done as remote guarding, virtual doorman, obviously video verification, and things of that nature. But a lot of that is about management video management services. So to have a way to control other things at the site, the property manager, they have a way, the system connected to their platform and get different type of analytic trigger into either loss prevention, that they get those triggers to be able to monitor if the workers, the vendors coming on time in the morning and things of that nature. Now we're talking about application, loss prevention. They have like a retail shoplifting detection that will alert in real time to the store manager and the headquarters or the central station, an application of that manner. The way the system designed, it's a cloud-based platform. So the whole idea is that the integrator can have a slice of the platform, and they can, from that platform, they can do a certain thing in certain services. They can even take a part of the system and sell it as a product to the customer. So let's say you have a customer that have 20 stores, a retail store. Now the integrator can give them the slice and they can do self-monitoring in certain hours during the day. In after hours, the monitoring will go to your central station that they will do the monitoring, and in between the integrator, they can do a lot of things. And then we have the central station. The central station obviously have the capability to get all the trigger, and while they get all the trigger, to interact with the site. We call it preventive security and not reactive security, just getting alarm and events. The system designed to work, if you have the DICE platform on the central station, so that's obvious, you can do everything. If you have any other central station that is not the DICE platform, it can be an add-on to any automation in the market. And that's way they can monitor on the same flow. They can get the alarm events on their on the existing platform, and the video events utilizing the platform that we have here. And this is pretty much the hybrid that everything can work with everything spread into the different parts. Now let's talk about some of the technician tools and something the technician can do. And Cliff, if you can explain a little bit about the concept of what we have here.
Yeah, what we did here was we have a number of tool sets that, there was a lot of stuff being built for central stations and monitoring. And as we talk to more and more installers, they're like, I'm out there blind, especially with the video, and it's sending its analytic trips and things like that. Like, how do I troubleshoot it? So what I'm about to show you is some of the tool sets. In this case, this is more stats on various cameras. You can look at it by IP, you can look at it by activity. That center column was by activity, and you can change that up into hundreds of different configurations. So you could look at like all your cameras across all sites, or mix and match what cities, which cameras are causing me the most activity, which ones are sending analytics of a particular magnitude, and drill down into those. So we built a really good dashboard and stat that you can configure. Okay, you can go to the next. The one thing too I want to point out about these cameras and analytics is I really believe it'll reduce the false alarms, because like before, where you'd have like a PRI or some sensor in a store, you'd get false alarms when a banner would blow. Here, you don't get that with a camera. What he brought up here to show is you can see that when I turn on the a camera's analytics, it basically is showing, okay, that camera saw motion, it's sending it out. We got an incident into automation. It wasn't acted upon because the premise isn't armed, or it is armed and we acted upon it. It literally shows you everything that the camera did its job, and then it sent out the alert, and then the automation got it, and so on and so forth. So it allows you on each camera on a site, if I'm an installer, I can just turn on the event viewer and actually see the details of what each incident's sending out. So if I'm looking for a person, an object, I can go ahead and turn this on, walk past every camera, then come back to it and say, did it see a person in every object? It did all the cameras send to the automation platform in the central station? And what did they do with it? Do I have my schedules right? Is the premise armed, not armed? How did it act? Installers are saying they're completely blind to a lot of that, which is making them continually use what I would call legacy alarm detection systems, like alarm panels and sensors, versus cameras, which are a little bit more advanced to do the sensing. Okay, keep going. Here in the event viewer, the top one is showing you, as an installer, I can look at the various incidents that are going to the automation platform. I can test PTZ, I can test relays, I can test audio. I can look at it in a multi-zone effect. What we've done is we've taken various areas of interest in cameras, and we call it the multi-view. It basically treats them as alarm zones. In fact, it turns them into standardized alarm incidences that are built for the alarm industry of alarm panels. We've built this into the sensor logic of every camera out there. And then, like, if you do a history search, go ahead and click on that. You can see all the incidences. They come in as alarm incidents into the automation platform right out of the camera, just like an alarm sensor would off a panel. And then you can see a multi-view. If you look at history, this will go back in time, and every clip I got from the camera at any time frame and what the zones were, it basically shows it to me live on the screen. So, okay.
Just to elaborate on the history, you can provide those features and function to the customer. So you have a customer that have a location and you sold them the system, you can give them access to the platform so they can get those multi-view in all the cameras when they do the searches as extension to the NVR that they have today.
Yeah, like in that view he was showing there, that's like an employee entrance here at DICE, and it just has object detection of if there's somebody on the sidewalk, it'll store the clip. So if I want to go back and see which employee came through at what time, or if somebody came in at 5 a.m., I can just look at the history of that and see it, because it's only storing when it sees a person. Yep. Okay. Some dealers also use that clip storage. They just store it rather than use a DVR because they only want to store incidences. In here, this is a two-way configuration. This is where you would configure your AI zones on a camera to create a zone or an area. In other words, simulating a virtual alarm panel. And if I do have an alarm panel sending a signal, this is also where I would put in the alarm zone. And when the alarm incident is sent to an operator, it'll literally pull up this camera view. So it works either way. If I'm getting an alarm from an alarm panel, I pull up this camera view. If I'm creating an incident from a camera, DVR, NVR, I'm going to create this alarm zone as the alarm panel would have, and then send it through to automation along with the link. So it's multifaceted. So, okay.
Now, just to elaborate on the area of interest, so when you have an analytic provider, company X, Y, or Z, so you need to do all the configuration of that company when it comes to marking the area of interest, the scheduling, and things of that nature. The way we're doing that we have like a gatekeeper, like a server, as part of the platform, and you do all the configuration on the scheduling and some an area of interest and some other configuration, you do it on this server. Now, when you get those triggers in the system, let's say you have like a 500 or 1,000 cameras with a vendor, and for whatever reason you want to switch to another analytic vendor, now you don't need to touch those 1,000 camera. You can pretty much, from the platform, you can move all those schedules, those sites to another analytic vendor. And obviously, the industry is changing. There are amazing technologies out there of analytics, and it's going to be even better. So you will have the flexibility to choose whatever you want, to not to be like a hostage of some older technology just because you need to go and to do those configuration.
To give you some ideas on this, let's say you had a smart camera out there and you got some analytics working on it, and we're getting the alerts from it, in this case, a hallway. And either the camera doesn't have the analytics you want, or you're not happy with the analytics, you can just say, I don't want to use that camera's analytics. I just want the motion detection on the camera to detect there's something there. I want to send it in. You send it into this system. You can pick any other analytics provider in the world. And as long as we can send to them, most of them we've got interfaced, other ones use a standard protocol. We will literally send the motion clip into another AI, provide the output, send through the alarm. So you can switch from a smart camera to, using in the cloud analytics, or you could even use the cheapest camera on the market and you get all the same analytics package. You don't need a smart camera. In what we've done here, we've built a platform that's universal across, right now, or across about 300 manufacturers of cameras and DVRs, NVRs, and you can do the same thing the same way. You don't have to use anybody else's interface. You just use ours, and we do everything behind the scenes as a seamless package. Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, you've got, we store the camera payload. So like in this case, this is a cheaper camera. It just sends 3 JPEGs, three images. We store all of the payloads that come from an NVR, DVR into what we call an audit history. And so if you said, geez, I didn't get an analytics strip for this person walking down the sidewalk, why is that? You can go look at what did the camera or the DVR, NVR send the AI provider, because a lot of people blame the AI provider. And it's not really the AI. It's either the DVR didn't capture it correctly, or you'll get some installers that install where it's rapidly sending clips constantly, and there's a cool down period in the DVR. We've even found some of the DVR, especially the cheaper ones, they have a buffer and they're behind sometimes when the installer hasn't hooked it up correct. And so this kind of gives you a payload history, so you can go out there and do a little research. It's another tool for installers to help them do their job. So.
Okay. So we're talking about the Matrix Interactive. So pretty much is a centralized, it's a platform, it's event management platform that pretty much have the capability to get to do alarm and video and pairs and video tours and everything that you're getting today from an eCentral station. So either if you are a DICE Central station, you can get the complete solution from there. And if you're a dealer that's using any other central station, they don't need for them to do integration. It's just a simple configuration that they need to do on their end. They know they don't need to work with DICE at all in order for you as a dealer to become a customer and to have them monitor those video events through your account as a dealer. Now, this is important.
Let me say one thing. Let me say one thing about that. When you do that, and we send into another automation supplier, you can decide whether we're just sending the video clips, a live view into any automation supplier, or you can say, geez, I want you to take over the alarm signals. In other words, we can take over your alarm transports, either on, if you got legacy IP or POTS line panels, or you've got cellular panels. We can take those in and we can merge the video and the audio and everything into those alarm signals, so it's combined, and then send it in an alarm company. So if your alarm monitoring platform, the company says, geez, we are not going to integrate your video with your alarm panel, we're not going to integrate audio, we'll do it in our system and we'll send it as one link to the automation platform your alarm monitoring company has, and then you're fully integrated. It's seamless that way. So keep going, Avi.
Thank you, Cliff. So the system is designed to be as open platform, the old way of interfacing different vendors and different product into either automation or one to another, it was always through APIs. And API, when you have an API between system, typically you get some feature that both system can connect and communicate together. But then you need to maintain it, and a lot of challenges that have to do with API. And we look at that as the old way of doing things. In today's world, and everything is cloud, and the new way of doing business and doing things, we develop here something that is an open platform, and we have thousands and thousands of product and a few, actually over 1,000 vendors. When I'm talking about vendors, we're talking about pretty much most of the leading analytics companies in the market. When talking about products, so we're looking at alarm panels, fire alarm panels, PERS panel, many type of IoT devices. If you think about it, if you have a temperature control, and I can go on and on with different industry in the different market, the system is capable, because it's open platform, to get all of those triggers, and there is no way to get those annoying APIs. In the market today, if you have like a vendor that you like to work with, typically you need to go to your automation company, they need to go to their automation vendor, and they need to write some kind of API that down the road need to be maintained. We believe it's wrong, and the whole idea with the open platform that it's open pretty much, and that 2022 moving forward the way of the future. So we're talking about analytics, so it pretty much any type of analytics. So we're talking about either gun detection, object detection to see a person, a vehicle, people, and on and on. So the whole idea to have a centralized way to capture all of those analytics, and you think about it, each one of those analytics trigger is a service. So if I see a person standing, it can be one type of analytics. I can sell gun detection, and I can sell many other type of analytics trigger, and each one of them can have a price tag when you sell to the customers. Then we have the object filtration. I'll give you an example. Think about you have a building, and people shouldn't be in the lobby from midnight to the next day. And we want, if somebody stands there for more than 10 minutes, we want to get an alert. So the system identified that somebody or people, group of people standing in that area. The system in the first 10 minutes will not initiate an event, but in the first 10 minutes will start to build an event. And once 10 events is over, we'll package everything and initiate a video event to a remote central station so they can take care of that. So this is what we call a filtration. Then we have human behavior, and this is very wide. Everything from crowd detection to if a person nudity. I can go on and on with many applications of people behavior as part of the platform. And there is something new, which is shoplifting. So if you have any retail customer, so to detect a technology that can detect if a person steal something in the retail store, hide something, eat something in the supermarket, the system will detect the different behavior and will initiate an alert either to the store manager or to the central side or the command center to take action of that. And we'll be happy if any of you interested to provide more information and show you a demo on how exactly it works. Then we're talking about the video zone. This is a very big thing. So in the security industry, when you think about alarms, so you have alarm system and you have sensors and zones, and then the end user can arm and disarm those video zones. What we did here, the exact same thing with video. So we look at cameras, and if you have 20 cameras, you can break them down into virtual video zones. So I had the north side of the building will be video zone number 1, 2, etc. And now the end user have on their mobile phone, they're able to arm and disarm exactly as they do with alarm system. They can do it now with the video system. In other words, no need to install alarm systems. The video, other than surveillance, is acting as alarm system, basically, with all the capabilities of video verification and end-to-end from the end user site and all the way to the monitoring station. And the monitoring station, an operator get a trigger, will get the multi-view that Cliff showed before, and the multi-view showed them that we got an event at camera number 3 at the north side of the building, but if I have 5 cameras in that area, the system will show me the triggered event and the 4 other cameras to the operator with no need, with one touch of a button. There's no need to search and do any other things like that. So we're talking about the virtual video zone that we call it the new alarm industry, and more of those video panels versus alarm panels in some of those applications. So very high level, we're pretty much the only company in the industry that everything sits under one roof. So we have our own data center that complies with the UL, the 827 for Central Station, the 7A, and all those other life safety requirements for system like fire alarm system, PERS, etc. So what we have under one roof in our data centers is the infrastructure as a service. So the everything that has to do with the infrastructure itself, the server, the cybersecurity, and things like that. Then we have the platform as a service. So the PBX and some of the other system will be fully embedded. And then we have the software as a service, all under one roof, all working together, all unified and work together. One of the main things that DICE is very famous with is the unification when it comes to databases. We're focusing today on monitoring and video application, but in general, we have the other platforms that we have. The whole idea when you have one unified database, so if you think about it, in every security company, you have accounting software, service software, monitoring software. This is the monitoring station, inventory. I can go on and on with different type of system that you have. The way that we're doing that is one unified database that enable when you do data entry in one place, it's update the other module, and there's no need to have multiple software solution. It's one platform in one software that pretty much manage everything, all the different modules. The PBA, because we are a communication company, so we have the telephone can be built in if this is an application with a central station. If this is an integration, so it's just an indication. We do have, by the way, the PBX as a service that installers can sell to their customers along with the telephone line, but that's separate discussion and not to focus on the morning of the presentation today. And then we have, going back to that multi-view that we mentioned before, just to mention that. So the whole idea to have a unified platform that pretty much, for example, you have PTZ installed that you installed 5 years ago. You probably an old API that you need to maintain. Sometimes you have issues with other equipment that you need to maintain because things are changing all the time. So all the idea with the unified platform on this end, with that everything resigned and we maintain the equipment, the head-end equipment that you have on the platform. And then we have the video alarm verification. So people are talking about video verification, but now we have the capability to do video verification when we take a camera as a video sensor, and that video sensor is the one that initiates those triggers. What we have here is another way to deal with false events and false alarm. So if there was an alarm event and you have a camera tied to that, so we can have put on hold the event before it gets and hit the operator. If that's a central station application, the system, let's say we have a buffer of 20 seconds. In those 20 seconds, the system will automatically send notification to the 5 key holder. When any of them put the password, when they get the trigger, they will also see the video of that site with video verification into the trigger. When they put the password, the system the event will close, the operator will not even get the event, and that's going to go to the log and the history of that event. Another part, again, talking about the bigger picture with unification, if you have our service and accounting and some of the other modules, is the customer can log in and they can initiate a ticket, they can do the payment, they can update the key holders for monitoring. They can do a lot of things utilizing this platform, and this is the customer login. And then we're talking about on the event management. So the way the system works, when I'm talking now on the central station side, but actually if you have those proprietary customers, or if the dealers sell this platform to the customer, to the end user that have 10 or 20 or any number of branches. So the capability to see not only the event, but to see the overall, the location, to see the site map, and to get to drill down even to the blueprint of the building to see the location of all the equipment that's installed and connected to that platform. Okay. Let's move to the next one. So now that we understood the basic, so why even taking the time to listen to this presentation, and why even do that? So if you think about this, in average, you have, let's say, 10 to 20 cameras at the site that you installed. The cameras recording all the time, but nobody view any of those videos unless if something happened, or unless it's connected with some kind of video verification or some kind of analytics. The whole idea is that there is, we call it video garbage. So there is a lot of in and out data that pretty much nobody see. So if you can add those video analytics trigger and connect it either as notification to the end user or in real time or alert to a central station, now what you have, if that, we spoke before about the different analytic providers, and each one of them can generate a different type of service. So the whole idea is that now you can have a way that every camera, that old camera that you installed 5 or 10 years ago, now can initiate those automatic services, and that's mean X dollars a month per camera on the install base that you have, and definitely with new installation. So the value proposition for the installers and the central station in the industry, obviously, the first and the top of everything is generating new line of services to the customer. It's not about the products anymore. Additional recurring revenue. And very important, very competitive market, the capability to differentiate from one company to another with unique services that others don't have. From end user perspective, so many times they don't need even to install anything. Again, I'm repeating that again and again because that's important. You can go back to an old installation and install and add on remotely some of those configuration, and now they can get from you the virtual video tours, and maybe with a few $100 installation, you could give them full-blown remote guarding services. Everything utilize, or most of that utilize, old installation and existing equipment. So from end user perspective, they can get they can maximize the investment that they did some years ago. And all of that is business management, security, and some of the things that I mentioned before today in the presentation. So what we did here today was very high level of what it is all about. There's way more to cover. Typically, would love to meet with you and to do like a live demo. And if you're a dealer, we're going to show you from integration company and dealer perspective how that works for you. If you're a central station, to show you how that works for you. And obviously, if you're a proprietary end user type customer, you can see how that works and how that works in your organization as well. Any questions?
If I can add one more thing, coming from an engineering standpoint, because I run most of the engineering groups here, our goal is to make it so you're never tied into proprietary cameras, video technologies, sensors, to make it so that you can switch. Everything looks the same to you. The fact that right now you've got even in the central station, when I look at central stations, I think how sad it is that the operators are running on an automation platform to handle IP and other alarms, and they got a different platform for video. And then they, the manufacturers of the products have got different apps for the customers. It's a wreck. And what we are doing here is we're trying to put it all on one platform, one seamless interface, make it all work together. And that's why we call it the new alarm industry, is because somebody has to bring all this together and standardize it. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. So that's our goal from an engineering standpoint.
That's great. All right, it looks like we did get a few questions. So the first question that I have in here is, can you explain how Matrix works with any central station monitoring automation software?
Okay, so we are the back end for a lot of different transports of signals. So we're hooked to all of the automation platforms and most of the central stations throughout the industry. We standardize everything that comes into an alarm receiver, and we send it into the automation platforms already. We just do the same thing with a video. If I get a video event and I process an AI, we turn it into a standard alarm transmission. We can either send it as SIA or a contact ID signal with the video transport along with it. So
great. Another question that I have is in here, how secure is the system on the cloud?
It's very secure. I mean, you use two-factor. We can use any other connectivity to your provider, like an AD or any other corporate login standard. A lot of the DICE customers, especially corporates, since we are a carrier, IP Telex is a US and Canadian carrier, a lot of times they won't even put it on the internet. They'll literally have us run layer 2 into all the stores. Like if they got 2,000 stores and it's retailer, we'll pull layer 2 connectivity, which is just a private internet connection, into our cloud. They'll then monitor their alarms across that private, so they're not even on the internet. So if you have a customer that says, I really don't want to feel comfortable with cameras on the internet, I like what you're showing, we'll just put it off the internet. You don't need to have it on the internet at all. We'll pull fiber or broadband into any location in the US and Canada and connect it to our cloud centers.
Great. Another question that we have, I'm just pulling it up. All right, it's, can your video AI be taught to recognize uniforms?
It can be taught anything, and I was going to mention that when we were doing the thing, but we were hitting you with so much stuff, I wasn't going to mention trainable AI. But right now, we have the capability engineering lab to train AI. We are working, it's not out yet, we're working on where you could train your own AI. So like in a uniform situation, you would literally have to train the AI, you'd have to provide pictures and different things. And then even when you go live, this requires the operator who is ever getting the alarm to say, this was a false alarm, this was good. I mean, you do that naturally, and then that advances the training and it gets better and better. We already have that built in, that when an operator gets an alarm, if they say, well, this is a false alarm, I want to suspend this same type of analytics or trip for the next 24 hours, it'll do that as well. But we're getting to the point where you'll literally be able to do your own training. One of the other things, when Avi was showing you like the human identification, a lot of people think of that as facial recognition, but nowadays AI has a lot more advanced features than just facial recognition. Most recognition of a person can recognize a person. You can train based upon what their body looks like, based upon how they look, the length of their arms, all sorts of other training mechanisms, and don't even have to get a good face hit to recognize, hey, that's Joe. And, the system knows who Joe is even without a face. So all of those things are possible, and they keep getting better and better. And especially with us using AI across many, many vendors, like even us in the lab, we know who's really good at recognizing vehicles and who isn't very good. And we know who's very good at recognizing people and who isn't very good. And so if you think about it, one of the things that we do behind the scenes for you is, if you say, I want a person in this view and I want a vehicle in that one, I'm switching between AI providers. Why use one provider that doesn't do some things well, but they're really good at others? Just spread it across everybody. So anyways.
Fantastic. All right, so we have a few more questions that came through. All right. This one says, can I use different AI analytic providers for the same installation? For instance, one for the front door and another for the parking lot.
Yes, you can even do it on the same camera. You can draw where he showed you areas of interest. You could have one area of interest on the lanes of a parking lot, and we're looking for vehicles. I'm using one AI provider that does better on the vehicles. And then among the cars in a car lot, like let's say you're doing a dealership, I'm looking for people, I'm using a different AI provider. So even on the same camera view in different areas of interest, you can use different AI providers. And there's a feature we haven't made it available to the customer, but we've toyed with it, obviously, to kind of learn what works in some AIs and what not. I can send it just like Expedia, when you go to say, I want a flight, and it comes back with all the airlines that go to, from Las Vegas to Seattle. There's 10 of them. Well, we could hit 10 different AI providers with the same motion detection. And in the future, I don't know how it'd be paid for, but you could literally hit every AI provider and you had, the bulk of them, they correspond with one another, then it's an event. If they don't, it isn't. You could do that sort of thing, but there would be a cost factor to that, So we've done it in the lab to kind of learn, like, why did this AI provider miss this vehicle? I mean, it's clear it's a vehicle. 3 others saw the vehicle. Well, then we're able to push that into that AI provider and go, you missed this. Why is this? To give you an example of how diverse AI is, we got one AI provider on one of the parking lots, came back with, there's a vehicle there, and there was clearly no vehicle when we looked. But then as we looked closer, we saw these lights pan. Well, their idea of a vehicle in the parking lot was they saw headlights pan. There was no vehicle in place, but a vehicle turned around in a driveway and panned its lights across other cars. The AI engine was trained to not only see a vehicle, but that was part of the training. So they included lights turning around the driveway the camera didn't even see. So it really depends on how the training was done and what the system was taught. Because think about it, it's like a human being. You teach somebody something. Some things they were taught, some things they weren't. We all think of things differently, and that's just a good example of a vehicle identification, that there was no vehicle, but it saw one,
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. All right, looks like you have a few more questions here. The next one I have is, if I choose the full package of Matrix Interactive with intrusion alarms, does that mean I won't need to purchase receivers or other equipment?
You don't have to purchase receivers depending upon what you're doing. I mean, a lot of that's virtual today. I mean, we host virtual receivers for manufacturers. We have virtual receivers, and then we have the hard physical receivers for traditional alarm. But like in the case of a camera, if you're doing AI, you're doing literally a trip through a camera, you don't need a receiver. I mean, it's coming into the cloud, it's decoding the AI, it's creating an alarm zone and right off of the AI event, and then it punches it through as if it came from a receiver. And so it looks identical to whatever automation package I'm sending into. It looks just like it came off a receiver. So a lot of the newer installers, especially the ones that are wanting to cut their price, and that they're literally using camera AI, which personally, I mean, there's people that would argue with me in the industry who maybe don't see it the way I do, but I think cameras and AI, as it gets better, they're going to replace panels, they're going to replace sensors, they're going to replace IoT devices in smart homes. That is a way to do it. And the other thing I tell people, people that want to keep all that stuff, they say, well, people don't want the camera seen, they don't want operators to see. Well, don't give the operator the capability to look at the camera. Just use the camera as a sensor, send it through as a traditional alarm. And if your customer is really that worried about somebody seeing, just say, we're never going to send the video through. We're just going to use the video to do the AI. We're going to send through an event because it saw a human, and no human being will ever see your camera. Just use it as a sensor. And then, of course, people don't know what to say about that. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so it looks like I just have one more question that was submitted. It says, you mentioned unified system. Can you explain what that is and what are the benefits for my company?
Okay, well, to everybody, what you're touching on, unified means something different. To us, what that means is because we're an automation platform, we're a PBX platform, and we're, a lot of this AI and that it's seamlessly integrating it all. It's kind of like what I said when I go in these centrals and I see they got one system running traditional alarms, they got another system running video. There's no concept of alarm zones. I mean, in the video providers that provide some of this stuff that we go out there and we see, there's no concept of the alarm industry at all. It looks like they started in a foreign country, come over here, and they don't even really understand what alarm signaling is in this country. And so what I mean by unification is, I mean, bringing that into the automation platform, having the schedules, having the open and closes, having the arm, have the camera zones, the AI be part of the arm disarm system. And, we constantly run into AI providers that say, well, we want the camera and the DVR to send us all the events, and then we'll send it to the automation platform. It's a joke. It really is. I mean, how do they know whether the premise is armed or not? What, they're going to send thousands of signals all day long out of a store or whatever, where people are there and you're saying, I'm looking for a human being, and then it goes to the AI provider only to come to the automation. We go, well, they're not armed right now. It's not supposed to happen. I had one customer had a $40,000 cell bill, and they thought that was normal. And we looked at this, we goes, it's because you're sending all day long. We'll ignore this because the premise isn't armed. They only want it when it's armed. So unification to me is doing stuff that's smart and building it all in one system, not having to have central stations, have 2 or 3, not having to have DVRs and all these cameras and smart systems and all that stuff out on site. It can all be done in the cloud, where the platform actually knows what it is. I mean, what good is a smart camera if it doesn't know the system is armed or disarmed on the alarm panel? I mean, this is why I laugh at all this stuff. It's ridiculous. Anyways, that's my idea of unification.
No, that's great. So it looks like we have a few more minutes. That's all the questions that we have submitted so far. So I will leave it up to y'all if we want to leave a few more minutes for any extra questions that come through, or if we want to just close a couple minutes early. What do you think?
The only other thing, I just wanted to say one more thing. When we were showing what Avi was referring to as a multi-zone, as you talk about, and he touched on this, let's say I got a site that's got 5 cameras. They jump over the wall. AI on one of the cameras hits the first. It creates the first alarm. Now think about that. If that was an alarm panel, they break through a window, they hit a PRI, the first signal comes through. Now, some people, for false alarm purposes on an alarm panel, they'd say, well, I got to have 2 zones. 2 zones make it a higher priority. 1 zone, it could be a false alarm. It should be the same thing with a camera, right? If I don't get another camera zone, another AI hit, maybe it's a lower priority. Maybe it's not. It depends on you. But what we did is we said, okay, I got 5 cameras. I'm all looking for a human being at this site. If I get one that's coming in, and we can say that whatever priority that is, what it is. But if I get another one, I get another human hit off another zone, now I'm going to raise a priority. I literally have 2 cameras with 2 different AIs, with 2 different events that AI was detected what I'm looking for. This is a pretty known event to be what I'm looking for in a security system. That's what our alarm panels work. That's how camera systems should work. So when we bring that up to automation, that's what we call a multi-view. It means multiple zone trips, multiple AI hits. Now I've got basically a story to tell about what happened there, and we put that on the timeline. And so that's what the multi-view is. So, okay.
And I'd like to add one more application. We have more and more customers that targeting the residential market. So looking either the do-it-yourself customers or the doorbells. So the capability to connect those devices and to connect them to a commercial central station. So the integrator, even if they didn't install the system, they just can go back to those customers and pretty much provide them those services, which open all new markets for residential applications as well, if the installer did or did not install those systems. Cliff, would like to add anything on that, or that's
Yeah, I
clear?
mean, we've got central stations that have went into that business, especially in these bigger cities where you've either got buildings where you got to let UPS in to put, the package for one of the tenants in a room, and then they got to make sure he leaves and the door closes. And there's some central stations that have taken on thousands of accounts like that. Another one is homeowners associations and other things where you normally would have standing guard, or you've got a guard at the front. Now you can do it all virtually. And the other big thing that is new in the central station business is if you have, like, for instance, our software, and you've got people like a smaller central station, or you got a guard shack, or you just create them a monitoring branch off your hosted platform with us. And you literally let them log in and monitor their site. If they miss the alarm or they don't handle it, like maybe they got a university security department's monitoring their alarms on campus, they get up, go into a vehicle, they didn't get the alarm, it comes to you at the central station. I've got some central stations already have 80 to 100 mini central stations running out of their central station as a monitoring branch. So that's another thing that a monitoring company can do, is you can sell these monitoring packages and just use your one system to promote and back them up and do all the services you do. I mean, it's becoming a very exciting world. I've never been so excited about monitoring and about the monitoring industry and the installation of all these technologies. I think it's really going in the right direction.
So I'd like to share my excitement with Cliff. Between the two of us, we have about 80 years of experience in this industry. And being in this industry so long, and so the evolution of the industry, where it is today is pretty much like a restart to the industry with all the new technologies and the business model. In other words, if you think about where the industry will be 5-10 years from now, it's going to be very different. So I want to thank you, Hannah, for the introductions and for helping us to introduce to the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this has been very educational and very exciting. I would just like to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. An email tomorrow you'll be receiving with a link to the recording. And again, if you want to learn any more about Dice Corporation and their technology, feel free to reach out to them with that email address here on the screen. And if you'd like to learn more about ESA membership, perhaps you're already a member but want to learn more about our services, or you haven't quite pulled the trigger yet, we'd be happy to hop on a discovery call to teach you more about how it can power your business. All right, have a great rest of your day, Security Pros.